Welcome to Public Speaking with Peter George. Do you want to be calm, confident, and credible every time you speak in public? Then stay tuned as Peter and his guests discuss public speaking tips, techniques, and tactics that help you increase your impact, influence, and income. Here's your host, the author of The Captivating Public Speaker, Peter George.
You've booked a gig, and that's great. But booking a gig and writing and rehearsing your talk is only part of your preparation. There's a whole lot more to be done. As an experienced speaker, coach, and event organizer, my guest, Sharyl West Loeung, shares with you the relationship between the speaker and the event organizer. By asking good questions and thinking ahead, she says you show up not only with an excellent speech, but in excellence. Here's a little bit about Sharyl. She's a speaker, producer, educator, and social entrepreneur who loves helping people discover belonging in our diverse world. She is also the co-founder of Cardia House Consulting, which focuses on the mindful reframing of difficult conversations by practicing generous communication. Sharyl gave her first speech when she was in 5th grade and hasn't stopped since. Here's my conversation with Sharyl West Loeung. Hi, Sharyl. Welcome to the show.
Great to be here.
Sharyl, you get to see the speaking world from various perspectives. What's your experience in the roles of speaker, coach, and event organizer?
You know, it's been one of the best parts of my life, I think, to evolve into different roles and to see it from different angles. But I started speaking really young and competing from 2nd grade at poetry contests to 5th grade doing original oratory, speech and debate in high school, doing some theater and tech theater through college. And then I started coaching high schoolers in college in speech and debate, but particularly in speech events such as extemporaneous speaking and original oratory. And I did that even after college, some professionally as a high school speech and debate coach. I'm also a minister. I have a seminary degree, and so I was preaching, which is another form of public speaking.
Definitely.
And then I worked at a university, and so I was doing a lot of event organizing where I was bringing in speakers for university events where you bring in a speaker for a banquet, for a lecture. And so I was working with speakers for events in that way as an event organizer. And then I started coaching more recently as a speaker success coach for a company called The Big Talk with Trisha Brook in New York. And so speakers go through a speaker certification program. It's a 12-week program, and I work with speakers there. But also as a Tedx speaker, I learned a lot there, but I also realized that there are some things that are pretty locked down in terms of what you can talk about and the licensing, and then you lose your speech. Essentially, you can't ever give it again, and you can only use less than 30 seconds in your own speaker reels once you've given it on a TED or TEDx stage. And so I really wanted to give the opportunity to other speakers to have that same experience. I mean, granted, maybe not the same profile, but to have the video and to have a stage and to produce my own show. And so I got to do that in November and fly in speakers and to coach and to event organize. And I'm working on producing some other shows in the future.
That's quite an experience, and starting young. I wish I had started that young. With all that experience you do have, and they say the greatest way to learn is to teach, and you've taught people at all different levels and through a good portion of your life, how has that helped you prepare as a speaker?
I would say one of the best learning experiences is reading other people's writing way before even getting to the speaking portion, because when you read someone's writing, you realize what comes across and what doesn't. And you can think about your own writing in that way, because it starts at the written portion way before you get to a stage. And so when you're reading things and you think this is redundant or superfluous, even though it matters a lot to the speaker, it doesn't help their end goal. And it helps you then when you're editing and you think, I love this line or I love this section, but it doesn't get me to my end goal. And so when you've done a lot of editing of other people's work, it helps you edit your own work in the same way.
as Faulkner said, kill your darlings. And we all have these little things. And
Yes,
you see it in other people and you go, oh, wow, I bet you I do that too. And we all do.
absolutely. And I always tell people, don't throw it away, put it in another document. It may turn into something else somewhere else. And that helps a lot versus deleting things.
Let's take your view from the organizer perspective. When you bring people in, a speaker in, what are the things you're looking for? What are the things that may be a red flag to you that maybe they shouldn't be brought in, or once they get there that it's not working out well?
Those are all really important things. And some experience will kind of help you navigate that, even though there are things that happen that you can't foresee. There's a moment in a conversation with a speaker where you understand that they have the combination of not just heart and passion, but also some discipline. And a speaker can't just be passionate about the topic or want it really badly if they have no coachability or no discipline to see through the process that's in front of them and no concept of what it's going to take to get to where they want to go. They don't have to understand it completely, but there has to be some balance between, I just really want this and I really care about this topic and I'm willing to do the work. And when there's a balance there, I'm all in terms of working with you as much as it takes to get you to where you need to go if you're willing to put in the work too. Some people hold on really, really tightly to what it is that they want, and it's maybe a little bit too close to the chest, and they just can't let go enough to kind of massage out what they need to. And so that's can be a red flag. I'm not wary of controversy, but if it's an issue that is so personal that they haven't really worked through it yet, it's going to bring up a lot of baggage and problems for them that maybe they don't foresee yet, then it may not be something that's ready for the stage. That's a red flag. And then really early on, some of the red flags are being late to meetings or not responding to emails, excuses about things. That's not something that's going to work well on a tight timeline. I certainly have a lot of grace, maybe more than a lot of other organizers. But at some point you say, this isn't going to work because we've got to get to a certain point and you've got to keep up.
You mentioned being coachable. Why do you think some people are more coachable than others?
There's so many reasons. One of the ones that I find that probably doesn't get talked about a lot is that people are defensive because they aren't confident. And it's not a matter of just having this big ego or some of the things that we often see on the outside as being projected, but it's actually has more to do with fear or shame or something a little bit deeper that's coming out because they really are struggling with what they're talking about, or they're struggling with a fear of failure or a fear of rejection or something much more personal in their life than just what you're kind of battling on the surface.
All right, now let's take it from the other point of view. When someone is invited to speak, what are some of the red flags they should look for?
I've turned down a pretty large speaking opportunity not too long ago, and it was difficult because I love speaking, and I'd gotten pretty far into the process and had to walk away. Some of those red flags are holding back information that is normal for you to have. So if they can't tell you the venue or times for rehearsal, like dress rehearsal, and you're within the process, or people that, just like we want as organizers people to be coachable, if you're feeling like someone wants to completely rewrite your idea, that they're making it their own, that it's no longer something that you believe in or can even really connect with, that becomes a problem because you can't really give a talk that's not yours. Communication, if you just have no idea what's going on, is another one. Or if expenses are racking up, like they're wanting you to pay for things or pay fees, that's always a huge, huge, huge one.
Have you heard what noted speakers and readers are saying about Peter's book, The Captivating Public Speaker? A love letter to creating significant impact and authentic influence. If you're looking to increase your impact through spoken word, this book is a must-read. Extremely well written, engaging, fun, and serious at the same time. After this episode, please use the link in the show notes to check out The Captivating Public Speaker on Amazon. Now, back to Peter and his guest.
So we get excited. We get invited to speak somewhere. We get really excited. We might overlook those. So that's a great list of things to be aware of. What tips do you have when speakers first secure a gig or sign that contract? What should they do first, and how do they move on from there?
You want to ask some basic questions of the organizer about their crew that will help you understand how well supported they are as an organizer. So you're going to say, this is great. I'm excited. Can you tell me a little bit about who's running your sound and your lighting, and how do you like to run your shows? These are the kind of questions they'll say, I do have a professional sound and lighting, versus I don't know yet. I haven't looked at that, or I've got it covered. Don't worry about it. I don't want to tell you. Like, those defensive attitudes will show you that maybe they're not as prepared. And you can look up those companies as well. Is it going to be recorded? If it's going to be a video and it's going to be posted online, and the video and audio quality is going to be poor, that lives on the internet forever. And that's a really big deal for you as a speaker. So you want to know that it's going to be good quality. If it's an event that's happened multiple years, go look at their past shows. If you're not happy with the quality and you don't want your name out with that quality, then that's really easy way to just say thanks, but no thanks. And you don't have to call them out on why, but that's a big deal for you, because people Google your name and it's going to be what pops up. And then as you get going, you can ask questions about things like rehearsal, how the show runs. I like to know how many speakers as well, just because if it's a really long show, people tend to get bored. And as soon as you can know where you are in the speaker order, do you require speakers to come and stay for the whole time? Do you require speakers? So for instance, I'm at 5 p.m., but you want me there at 6 a.m. for the whole show. I just need to know that. Some will have rehearsals multiple times in person versus Zoom. That's a budget issue that you need to know beforehand. They're usually in the contract, but some just aren't as organized. So you just ask a few of those questions. What's great is when you get an offer and it's all laid out at front, and then you already know, okay, this person is on top of things.
Do you think when you see it all laid out like that actually makes some inexperienced speakers nervous? That, oh my God, these people have their act together and I'm required to do A, B, C, D. Now it's like, oh my God, is this over my head?
Yeah, absolutely, it can. I just produced a show and it was half and half, speakers who had been on TEDx stages and speakers who had never been on any stages. They were actually in a range of 21 to say 27, really young speakers, which I wanted to do. And so I took extra time with them to explain things, at times split my email lists for my TEDx speakers and change language, which was a little extra work for me, but it was important to make sure that everyone was comfortable in a different way, so that those who had experience didn't feel like they were being condescended to and over-explained, and those who had no idea had all the information that they needed and understood the language. But we're learning too. I didn't want to dumb it all down, and then their next event, they didn't know what those things were.
I get the gig. Now, how do I get invited back?
Very good question. It's really important that you do two things. One may sound a little bit counterintuitive. It is not so important to get the gig back that you compromise on your values or that you suck up. And so if you need something that day, it is okay to ask for basic things or to ask questions. However, kind of feel the room. And if they're running around and they're trying to get things done and you're asking and interrupting, that's not a great way to do it. Figure out who's the point person. Is it the stage manager? Is it a volunteer team? And make sure you're working with the people that you need to work with. But the best thing you can do is figure those things out before you get there, and to take care of the things that you need to take care of, so that you're not asking about last minute changes on your slides or your script, or how do I do this? Like, have that stuff done. Say thank you, be polite, encourage your other speakers, send or bring thank you notes or a gift. I mean, if you can, a gift from your hometown. things that show gratitude that and it's not sucking up. It's genuine gratitude that you are, enjoyed being there. And send a thank you email when you come back, whether it's, across the street or another state, for the opportunity. And those are things that will stick because not everyone will do that.
One of the things I picked out of there was something I do and have been doing even before I was speaking, handwritten notes. When people say, how did you build your career? Whether it was when I was speaking or the other companies I've owned. And I say, one of the greatest things I think I ever did was to make sure I always have note cards, blank note cards with me. People say, well, no one writes cards anymore. Exactly. Yours stands out.
I'm a millennial and I still do it. I know how I feel when someone does that. And I think it's a thing that is something that is unexpected. Especially if I'm traveling, I'll bring my state postcards with my state flower or different things on it, which is just like a nice little touch. But I do want people to know that I am grateful for the opportunity and that it means something to me. And it does still mean something every time I walk out on a stage. I don't do gigs to sell a product or service. I'm about ideas and building community. And so those things are always really special to me. And I want to take those moments to thank not just the event organizer, but the stage manager. And, if I've been in contact with a volunteer or, if you're doing a TEDx, you usually have a speaker coach, all the people that you've been around and some blank ones. If somebody helped you with a microphone that day that wasn't working, just to be able to say thank you, because there are a lot of thankless jobs in an event organizing community. People up backstage that don't get seen, and it's important to acknowledge those people.
How does an organizer look at someone, you, my listeners, whomever, and say, that's the dream speaker. That's the person I definitely want here?
There's so many different ways that organizers are finding speakers now. That's a little bit of a trick question. But to me, it's always about authenticity. I can't be someone I'm not, and I can't pretend that I'm an expert on something that I'm not. And so not every stage is for me. Not every topic is for me. And so that's part of it. I am a versatile in some ways. And so I certainly like people to know that, I have these videos, but I also have other things that I do and can do and work on getting a variety of things out there. But I think part of being the dream is just being somewhat what we've talked about before, being responsible, being responsive, and being someone that works hard and takes notes well. And so that when you show back up, you've improved and you've done more as far as once you've worked with them. Having references is really great, or having, people that can speak to last experiences. Let's say that you're spoken somewhere and they're not able to do a really substantial speaker fee, but you can ask for video and ask for referrals to other events, as well as quotes for my website.
And if you take some of those things you just talked about, videos, testimonials, referrals, they can be as valuable, and in many cases more valuable than the money you would rather have had for that particular gig.
Absolutely. If they multiply into more, then it absolutely can be.
It's one of the things I say to my clients when they say, well, I charge X number of dollars, and say it's $5,000, and they want me to come and speak for $500. But let's dig a little. How can we make that worth at least $5,000, if not more? Maybe you can, maybe you can't, but it's worth investigating, don't you think?
Absolutely. If it's something you really want to do and there's ways to get compensated through travel, through meals, a lot of times people have mileage to give and then could put you up in the hotel. And then, like you said, the testimonials, good video. It's not cheap to get videographers out for yourself. So anytime you can get good video, get some references to and referrals to other organizers, those sorts of things. You can't live off of that, every time, certainly, but it is a way to build some relationships too.
Many years ago, I was asked to speak in New Orleans, and it was for, truthfully, just a few $100s. And I initially said no. And the president of the organization said, I'll give you my condo for a week in the French Quarter. And I thought, well, that's worth quite a bit of money. My wife went with me. We had a blast, except it was right after the 4th of July. And I learned if there's one time you don't want to be in New Orleans, it's in July.
Well, there's a couple of times, but yeah, that's one of them. Yes.
Things like that can happen. And I can understand from both an organizer's point of view and the speaker's point of view that sometimes there are compromises to be had.
Dr. Kristen Donnelly, a dear friend and business partner, and I just did, it's called Belief in Belonging Festival. And the way that we compensated our speakers is that we paid for hair and makeup. We had a hair and makeup artist on site, and then videographer and photographer. And so they have full rights to their video, their photos, and then they had this professional hair and makeup artist. And so the assets that they will get to go forward is something that, and eventually we do want to pay our speakers. This was our first year, but this gives them something to take with them for their websites, for if they're going to apply to other things, they have this great video. And so, it was a way to honor them. We catered a dinner for them, just trying to make sure that they felt valued in the best way that we could. And it worked out really well.
That's great. And from an organizer's point of view, it's got to also be, hey, they can always say no if this isn't enough for them, right?
Yes, but they loved it.
I would think.
We really wanted them to have an experience where they enjoyed doing what they loved. And so that was important.
And one of the toughest things to get, especially when you're starting out, is quality video. So when you provide someone with video, that goes a long way.
Yes. And that we were able to do. And so I felt really good about that. And I'm really proud to say that we could give them video that for some of them that they've never been able to get for themselves and would be a lot further down the line before they would have that.
That's great. Sharyl, where can my listeners go to connect with you?
Oh, so many places, but I'll give you a couple. One is at Belief and Belonging Festival on Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube. Videos aren't up yet, but they will be. And you can see a little bit of the organizer side. And then personally at Sharyl, SHARYL_WL on Instagram. And you can look in my link tree in my bio and find all the other things.
Sharyl, thanks so much for being here. Really appreciate our conversation.
It was great talking to you. I love public speaking, and I know that you do too. So it was a great conversation.
That's a wrap of another episode of Public Speaking with Peter George. Be sure to tune in again for a conversation with another public speaking expert. And remember to use the link in the show notes to go to Amazon and check out Peter's acclaimed book, The Captivating Public Speaker.